An ancient lion lay broken in the amber grass, his breath a-tremble between life and the silence beyond. The crushing coils of a monstrous python constricted around his ribs like the jaws of fate itself. His body, once the very embodiment of regal strength, now trembled under the weight of death. His golden mane, dulled with age and dust, flickered in the sun like the last embers of a dying fire. Around him, the savannah pulsed with indifferent heat. The air was thick, alive with cicada screams and the metallic scent of blood and earth. But just beyond this fading circle of life, 5 massive silhouettes stood still as obsidian statues. Gorillas colossal, carved from flesh and instinct, watched. Their leader, a silverback whose chest bore the scars of decades, narrowed his eyes on the unfolding battle between serpent and king. But they didn't move, not yet. There was a tension, not of fear but of ancient hesitation. A silent debate older than language. What could stir rivals to interfere? What unseen hand could urge them toward compassion in a land ruled by survival? The righteous care for the needs of their animals, but the kindest acts of the wicked are cruel. Once, this lion had roared loud enough to hush valleys. He was a monarch not by crown, but by other kind of presence that sent herds thundering in his wake and silenced the petty squabbles of jackals. His territory had sprawled, like the hands of a god over the plains. But time is the savannah's cruelest predator. It gnaws slowly, without mercy. The lion's reign had crumbled not with ceremony, but with a brutal ambush. A coalition of young challengers, muscle, rage, and ambition struck like a lightning storm. In minutes he was dethroned, his mate taken, his cubs scattered, his pride lost. Left with torn flesh, broken pride, and a heart filled with dust, he wandered as a ghost. For days he limped through hostile lands, hunger hollowing him and memory stabbing with every step. Then came this place, a grove of acacia where the grass was soft and the wind for once did not mock him. He collapsed under the faint shade, perhaps to die in peace. But fate was still riding. From a distance, the gorilla troop saw him. Young ones paused their tumbling. Mothers halted their foraging, and the silverback he watched, not with hatred, but with something deeper. A knowing, even the wild beasts honor me, the jackals and the owls, because I provide water in the wilderness and streams in the wasteland. Ranger Alex wiped sweat from his brow, binoculars raised like a window into destiny. 20 years patrolling this park had shown him every shade of survival, from miracles in the mud to tragedies beneath moonlight. And yet this moment twisted something new into his gut. He recognized the lion had documented his rise and mourned his fall from afar. He also saw the python, a monstrous river of muscle cloaked in diamonds slithering silently, a predator drawn by the stench of weakness. Alex's breath hitched. He wasn't just witnessing nature. He was standing at the edge of something sacred. He saw 3 stories about to collide: the fallen king, the coiled executioner, and the silent watchers. He didn't dare blink. The python struck like lightning. The lion barely had time to grunt before death wrapped around him. Coils upon coils like a noose tightening with ancient purpose. His legs flailed, once weapons of terror, now useless flutters. His roars, once storms, were now strangled, hollow sounds. Deliver me from the mouth of the lion. Save me from the horns of the wild oxen. Then something shifted, not in the grass, but in the air itself. The silverback straightened, his vast frame towering above his kin. His eyes, those deep, sentient pools, flicked from the dying lion to the coiled serpent. To interfere meant violating every instinct. They were not allies. They were competitors in the same ruthless kingdom. Still, his chest swelled with breath and decision. He let out a guttural grunt, a language of command, and turned his back. A subtle hand wave signaled his troop. They would leave. This was not their war. From his jeep, Ranger Alex's shoulders slumped. He nodded grimly. Of course, the wild would be wild. The snake would feed. The lion would die. The page would turn. Who teaches us more than the beasts of the earth and makes us wiser than the birds in the sky? But the story didn't end there. The python, sensing victory, began its final act. Its slick head wove through the folds. of its own body, aiming for the lion's muzzle. This wasn't just a kill, this was erasure, a precise cold end. But just as the predator shifted for the final blow, the silverback froze mid-step. Something primal, something divine sparked behind his eyes. He turned, no longer a leader choosing safety but a guardian awakened. His roar raw, volcanic shattered. The moment, and then he charged. Not with reckless rage, but with purpose honed by years of leadership. His fist struck the earth with thunder. Dust exploded around his feet. He didn't attack the coils. He didn't strike aimlessly. He went straight for the python's tail, grabbing it with both fists like a man hauling a drowning child from a river. The ground trembled beneath his effort. The snake, stunned, faltered. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friend. That pause, that one heartbeat of confusion was all it took. The four other gorillas exploded into motion. Like lightning tearing across the savannah, they surged forward. But this wasn't chaos. It was choreography. Each move was intention. One leapt onto the serpent's midsection, pulling. Another clawed carefully near the lion's ribcage, peeling. A coil. One juvenile wrapped its arms around the upper loop and wrenched with everything it had. The lion's eyes, dim with pain, fluttered, then blinked. He was still fading, but now he wasn't alone. The gorillas didn't bite. They didn't crush. They worked like healers untying a knot of death. Inch by inch, scale by scale, they dismantled the serpent's grip. Until finally, one heaving pull later, the last coil snapped free. The wolf will live with the lamb. The leopard will lie down with the goat. And a little child will lead them. And then, silence. The python slithered back, not in defeat but in confusion. Its instincts could not process what had occurred. The lion lay gasping, every breath a thunderclap of resistance. And the silverback stood over him, not in conquest but in communion. A rival turned rescuer, a king honoring another. Ranger Alex, still holding his binoculars, felt tears roll unchecked down his face. In 2 decades on this land he had never seen the law of the jungle rewritten with such grace. This was more than a dramatic wildlife rescue. This was a moment when the wild remembered mercy. A moment when the ancient rivalry between beast and beast bowed to something higher, something sacred, a wild bond. An animal miracle. A viral YouTube story born from the unlikeless touch of compassion. With the force of an ancient god channeling centuries of buried thunder. Silverback, still clutching the massive tail of the serpent, spun in a perfect arc and flung the python across the clearing. The air tore as the creature whipped through it, a living bolt of terror hurled like a weapon forged of instinct and fire. It landed with a sickening thud deep in the tall grass, its coiled body writhing once, twice, and then vanishing, as if the earth itself had swallowed it in shame. And then silence. The grove fell into a hollow stillness, deeper than any absence of sound. Even the cicadas stopped their song. No wind stirred the leaves. Time held its breath. In the center of the scene, the lion, once a ruler, once a roar, lay motionless. A golden monument to the fragility of greatness. His body, still, tangled and raw from the crushing coils, didn't move. His mighty chest, the drum that once commanded the plains, was eerily still. And the gorillas, warriors who had just committed an act so unheard of that it broke the laws written in the marrow of the wild, didn't howl or beat their chests. They didn't proclaim their victory. They didn't retreat. Instead, slowly, each one with the reverence of priests at a sacred altar, they formed a loose semicircle around the fallen lion, not as conquerors, but as protectors. Their breaths came heavy and labored. Muscles quivered with the aftershock of battle. But their eyes told a different story, one of witness, of kinship that defied logic, of a connection that not even blood, species, or instinct could explain. The lion may roar, the jungle may tremble, but mercy speaks in a voice louder than any roar. Ranger Alex, still frozen in the front seat of his dusty Jeep, felt the world tilt beneath him. His binoculars hung limp in his hands. He wasn't just observing a moment, he was standing at the edge of a revelation. In 20 years of patrolling these lands, documenting every nuance of predator and prey, he had never, ever seen this. This wasn't nature, this was something beyond. His fingers trembled as he put the jeep into gear and began rolling forward. Tires crunching softly over the dry grass as he approached. The gorillas turned not with panic, not with aggression. They simply shifted, their massive frames tensing slightly, eyes narrowing with fierce intelligence. They didn't flee. They didn't charge. They just watched, holding their ground like guardians of something sacred. Alex stepped out slowly, hands raised in open peace. His boots touched the earth like he was stepping into a temple, not a battlefield. He didn't speak to them because he thought they understood English. He spoke because intention flows through tone, posture, breath. Animals don't always need words, they feel truth. He knelt beside the lion with reverent caution, every movement deliberate, gentle. His medical kit opened with a soft click, its contents gleaming in the sun like offerings. The gorillas did not interrupt. Their eyes, dark and bottomless, tracked his every gesture. He cleaned the angry red welts left behind by the python's crushing grip, felt the lion's chest. Listen for life? There was none. And then a twitch, a shudder in the lion's flank. Then another. A ragged, gasping breath clawed its way into his lungs, ripping through the silence like a prophecy fulfilled. His eyes blinked, open, clouded, pained, but unmistakably alive. He heals the broken-hearted and binds up their wounds. A hush fell over the clearing once more. But it was a different kind of silence, wholly awed. Ranger Alex exhaled, tears stinging his eyes, not just for the lion, but for what he now understood. His work done, Alex slowly gathered his things, never turning, his back on the gorillas, never rushing. As he backed away toward his vehicle, he watched the circle remain, still, protective, loving. Then the youngest among them, a lanky adolescent with wide, curious eyes, took a hesitant step forward, his long arm extended. A finger touched the lion's shoulder, just once, not a poke, not a prod. A question, a whisper in the language only the heart understands. The lion did not flinch. He simply breathed, as though accepting that touch as part of something ancient and sacred. The wolf shall dwell with the lamb, and a child shall lead them. Alex knew then that he had not witnessed a fluke. This was not a glitch in evolution's plan. This was a testament, a rewriting of what we think we know. The law of the jungle was never law, it was an interpretation. A convenient phrase to describe a world too vast, too unknowable. But here, in this patch of green, a new law had been born. Not carved in fang or claw, but in mercy. In empathy, a lion saved by those he once rivaled. A man trusted by creatures who had every reason to fear him. A moment suspended between life and death, rewritten by compassion. This wasn't just a dramatic wildlife rescue. This wasn't just an emotional, true story. This wasn't just a heartwarming animal video. This was a miracle. If this unbelievable act of courage and connection stirred your soul, subscribe to our channel for more stories that prove animals have hearts bigger than we'll ever understand. And don't miss our next video, where we dive into the breathtaking emotional world of elephants, the gentle giants whose memories, tears, and empathy will change how you see the wild forever. Because sometimes in the heart of nature, the wild rescues itself.